Afternoon and good evening, depending on where in the world we find you today. Welcome to the second in our series of 5 webinars covering the effects of COVID-19 on the packaging and processing industries. My name is Marek Szandrowski, and I'm Brand Director at Informa Markets with responsibility for the ProPack portfolio of processing and packaging trade shows across China, India, Southeast Asia and Egypt. We are very pleased to be organising this series of webinars in collaboration with the World Packaging Organisation, supported by the Australian Institute of Packaging, and many thanks to Pierre Pienaar and Nerida Kelton for their enthusiasm and for shaping the agenda for the series. Today's topic is how COVID-19 is impacting the role of packaging in food safety and food integrity. This subject is hardly ever out of our headlines, be it here in the UK, where there's a lot of talk about the risks to food safety as a consequence of the UK-US trade deals following Brexit. In China, we've recently seen an outbreak, a coronavirus outbreak attributed to imported frozen salmon. And in many parts of the world, including UK, USA and Europe, meat processing plants have been linked to further outbreaks of COVID-19. I'm sure these subjects will be covered by today's discussions by our distinguished panel. And I'm delighted to be able to welcome a host of international experience and expertise from across the globe. Today's star-studded lineup includes Pierre Pienaar, WPO President, currently based in Australia. Also from Down Under, we have Ralph Moyle from the AIP, Surendra Soni from Sealed Air in Thailand, Johannes Bergmair, WPO in Austria, and last but definitely not least, Andrew Manley, AIPIA in the Netherlands. I understand we have over 500 participants from today's webinar, and you're very welcome. We aim for today's session to be as interactive as possible, and the Q&A session is integral to this process. So we'd like you very much to get involved by submitting questions, and when you do so, please state your name and the country where you're attending from so we can identify you. Just before I hand over to Pierre, I'd just like to say a few words on what is happening with the ProPack shows. I'm very pleased to say that we're now seeing the return of exhibitions to many parts of Asia. Informa Markets have also recently run some events in China with large attendances. We're therefore confident of successfully running our flagship ProPack events, starting with ProPack Vietnam taking place 9 to 11 in September, followed by ProPack Asia in October, and then ProPack China in November. In the interim, as a means of maintaining connectivity with our communities, we have also recently concluded a couple of digital events, vPlace, which is connected to ProPack Asia, and VEC in combination with ProPack China. Other digital events are in the planning stages, and we're looking to maintain our networking relationships and opportunities whilst we return to live events. So more details can be found on our ProPack websites. So without any further ado, I'd like now to hand over to Pierre Pienaar and our guest panelists. Pierre.
Well, a very good day to all of you, and welcome to this series. We've got a delightful bunch, and I mean that in all sincerity. Marek introduced them, and they're all from all parts of the world. So let me, seeing this issue that we are facing very differently from the different regions of the world, and as we go through the evening, we will see how different their answers will be based on what they are experiencing in their own region. So I want to kick off by first introducing Johannes Bergmair. Now, Johannes, I know, lectures in all parts of the world, mainly in Europe, as well as being an expert in court appearances. That's in defense of packaging. But he is also my right-hand man in the World Packaging Organisation and our Secretary General. So, Dr. Bergmair, can you tell us, just from a short intro before you go into your PowerPoint presentation, what is COVID doing in Austria?
Yeah, well, we have just announced, thank you, Pierre, yeah, and welcome to everybody here on the webinar. Happy to be here. Well, I think COVID in Europe, and especially in Austria, worked quite well. Yeah, we had not that many cases like in nearby countries like Italy or Spain or like this. Yeah, but nevertheless, we also just recognized the last days that it's still here. Yeah, just yesterday evening, our government announced again that we have to wear masks in supermarkets and post office and such things starting from Friday, because more cases occurred within the last days. So we are sure that the virus is still here and we still have to deal with it. But all in all, compared to other countries, I think we are quite happy on what was going on.
Okay, Johannes, if you can do your presentation, which just so the viewers know, it's looking specifically at the safety, integrity aspect of packaging.
Yeah. So I hope you can see my screen now.
Yeah, yeah, we can.
And I think I just wanted to tell you, Pierre mentioned already a little bit. Yes, my name is Johannes Bergmair. I'm not sure if I'm always his right hand. Maybe sometimes I'm always his left hand. On General Secretary of WPO. WPO is the Worldwide Organization of Packaging Institutes, and we are very happy for this cooperation with Informa running these webinars. If you need any more information on WPO, please go to our homepage. You will find the link down there. And you can see all our activities in education, our World Star program, World Star student programs, and about our meetings and working groups. For today's presentation, I think it's quite also interesting to tell you that I'm hygiene management auditor. Just yesterday visited a company here in Austria producing a coated silicone coated paper and plastics and so on. I'm working for a certification body here in Austria. It's called Quality Austria, and that means I'm responsible there for managing all the standards like BSCGS, FSSC, ISO 20002 and HACCP programs on packaging producers. Yeah, and last but not least, I'm also active as a consulting expert there with my company Pack Experts, dealing also with that food contact material thing and so on. And I think this is also the reason why they asked me to give a short input here. I have 3 statements, yeah, and for sure these statements are based on my experience here in Europe and especially in Austria and the surrounding countries. Yeah. The thing I think we are missing at the moment is I can't give you some scientific data on how packaging industry worked out under COVID-19 because it's still running, and I think we have to look back in hopefully half a year or a year kind of this. So this is my impression, my local impression, as Pierre said. My first statement is, once again, and I think it's not new for us, but for many, many other people out there, packaging is systematically relevant. Yeah? If we want to run our business systems, even in such crises, we need packaging. This was not so clear also in European countries. When the shutdown came, yeah, because of COVID-19, it was something middle of March, beginning of March, depending on the countries. Yeah. First of all, they said, okay, we are turning all companies down, except those who are really important, food producers, pharmaceutical producers. But within some hours, governmental responsible persons recognized, oh, but if we don't have packaging, we don't have any use for food or pharmaceuticals because we cannot deliver them. Yeah. So there was also no shutdown on packaging industry here in Austria, Germany, and the surrounding countries. Yeah. And I think this is what we have to recognize. Yeah. For sure, I have to admit this is true for packaging for foodstuff and pharmaceuticals and similar products and personal care products and something like this. But don't forget, this is about 2/3, nearly 3/4 of packaging industry worldwide is dealing with that kind of products. Yeah. And if you look back now in my countries and also in the companies I'm auditing, the production ran really well. Packaging production was maybe reduced for packaging for the automotive industry and something like this. They are still struggling, but all the packaging producers for foodstuffs, for pharmaceutical, most of them even said we made the business of our life. Yeah, we didn't know how to produce and what to do first. And even the supply chains worked. And even with countries which have been very infected like Italy, I have many companies getting raw materials from Italy, aluminium foil or some special plastic films or something like this. And even from Italy, there was 1 or 2 days when we in Europe, they decided to close the borders, yeah, for people traveling. but it was quickly clear after one day that the closure of the borders is not for products to be changed and for trucks crossing the borders. And so there was maybe a lack of 1 or 2 days, but then it worked. What I think we should do as packaging industry, we should promote that status. Yeah? And if we have any discussions about the importance of packaging, we maybe can only say, remember that crisis. Yeah? Packaging played a virtual role there. My second point is the protection function of packaging. For sure, I guess if I speak here in an audience, it's clear to us that the first and most important function of packaging is protect the filling good. But it's not so clear for the people outside there, as we know. Yeah? Especially again, if we have such sensible products like foodstuff, like pharmaceuticals, like personal care products, something like this, we need packaging to protect. And what we have learned again, and I know many people, normal people, not packaging people, that contacted me within the last days and said, oh, I'm so happy that packaging is there, because it protects me against viruses and all the other diseases. Yeah? And I hadn't had that effect for many, many years. Yeah? Because you know, all the last years, if you're talking to anybody out there about packaging, it's about bad, 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 because you're poisoning environment and whatever. So for at least for some weeks, for some months, this protection discussion in public, the packaging, the protection function that packaging has outpaced that sustainable packaging discussion. For sure, I will give it in the very last slide about what to do, task to do. For sure, the sustainable packaging discussion is not gone, and I'm happy about it, because we should discuss it and we should work on it, and we should make packaging more sustainable. Yeah? We have many programs running within WPO working on this. Yeah? But we should not forget that there is this protection function, and if you're losing that protection function, then there is no need for any sustainability anymore, yeah? Because if people are dying because of bad packaging, yeah, then there is no sensible discussion about sustainability in packaging. For sure, what we need for this, we need functional packaging technology, packaging materials, looking a little bit to Andrew Manley. I hope we will hear something about active and intelligent packaging there going on. But at the end, we need packaging at all. Yeah, that's the point. And for sure, last but not least, it's also about that picture. We learned, okay, all these pharmaceuticals, medical devices, disinfects, we need it in hospitals so much. For sure, they also don't run without packaging. Yeah? And so again, this is the link to the system relevance I told you behind there. What we need there is knowledge. So what we need is training on packaging. What is the protection function? How we can improve it? We need research projects on this and so on. And we have to promote this function. Yeah. My last point already before my conclusion, because I'm hygiene management auditor, what I recognized is that hygiene management in the field of packaging production really makes sense. Because what turned out, that certified companies, which are certified not only against the quality management, whatever, but also are certified against the hygiene management system, like BSCGS, like ISO 20002, FSSC, however you call them, yeah, they have managed the crisis much better than comparable companies. Yeah, why is it like this? Such companies have a defined incident crisis management. And I remember for many, many years, always when we're doing audits on that point, for sure, between the lines, you read, yes, we have that crisis management, but do we really need it anytime? Yeah? If I go now to companies, all of them saying, we are so happy that we have thought about before how to act on this situation. Yeah? Because in such a crisis management system, there are clear communication plans in there. Who is talking to whom? Who is allowed to talk to the press or to officials? Who are our contacts at the authorities, food safety authorities? Then we can ask questions how to behave on whatever things. For sure, it's about staff facilities. Yeah, companies certified against hygiene management systems, They have facilities for hand washing. They have lockers so that they can separate their shift people, kind of this. Yeah, they have designated places for eating, for smoking, and so on. Yeah, and this, as we know, especially the hand washing, is the thing that really helps. Yeah. If you have not installed that already and are hit by such a crisis and have to investigate how to build up such hand washing structures in your company, yeah, it's not possible because you don't get the material. Yeah, and for sure there are already hygiene rule stuffs in place, yeah, especially about protective clothing, about hand washing, wash your hands as often as you enter the production. There are rules about eating, drinking, smoking, separating people was not a big issue for them. And last but not least, these companies also are working more intense on their supply chain management. So where are my suppliers? Am I really sure to get my material in the right quality? Yeah, and this also helped a lot. So what I say, let's do identify this hygiene management as advantage. Last slide, my conclusions. We should talk more about and do better promotion on what packaging is doing, yeah, and how which important role packaging played in that COVID crisis again, yeah. We should work on resilient supply chains, yeah. Look, where are your suppliers, where your materials are coming from, do I have backup systems and so on in case of such a crisis. What we need, looking again to Andrew a little bit, we need develop sustainable and protective packaging, not only sustainable, not only protective, but both. This is what we need. And talking about us, you know, there are many other packaging functions like communication and so on. We also should include them for sure. One point I think in science, I think we need, there was a discussion in Europe on how long viruses, microorganisms can survive on a packaging surface. Yeah, and I think we need a little bit of knowledge there. So some universities should run on this, some programs, how long a virus is viral on a plastic surface, on a paper surface, on a metal surface. Yeah, and we should run more of these hygiene management systems, and for sure also improve them. Yeah, and learn out of the crisis and see what we can do better in being prepared for the next crisis, because it's coming for sure. That's my statement on this. I hopefully, sure enough, better quality of life through better packaging for more people is our slogan on WPO, and I think within COVID, we already showing that packaging is a big issue for better quality of life. Thank you.
Thanks, Johannes. I'm going to go straight to Surendra. Surendra, I know you're based in Thailand, but you've had a lot of experience in particular in plastics packaging and cleaning and sanitation, which is very pertinent to our topic this evening. And Seal Air fills that space quite well. And you've been very involved from an educational perspective in terms of training folk, I presume, in that sort of area. What is happening in Thailand with COVID-19?
Yeah, hi everybody, and yes, particularly specifically if you look at the situation in COVID-19, I think the country has been done an excellent job in terms of controlling the situation. There has been a whole lot of education around mass awareness programs, which has kind of developed a sense of understanding within people. So basics such as what Johannes just mentioned in terms of wearing masks, usage of hand sanitizers and so on, social distancing, stuff like these, and rapid testing, I would say, has really helped control the scenario. I mean, I have not seen many countries across the world which have been able to contain the numbers just to 3,300 until today. So which is, I think the government has done a massively great job there. Unfortunately, the rest of Asia, we are seeing differing scenarios. We all know the scenario in India. China, to a great extent, has been able to contain it, though we did see a small resurgence in the Beijing area, particularly around the seafood fresh markets. But again, they have been under control as well. But education is really helped in this country.
Okay. Surendra, can you go straight into your PowerPoint?
Absolutely, sure. All right, so is that visible?
Yeah.
All right, okay. So good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, everybody. Namaste and Swadikap from Thailand. I'd like to, at the very outset, thank WPO and Informa Markets for putting together this series of webinars, and this one being particularly that Sealed Air talks about in terms of role of packaging on food safety and food integrity. Sealed Air is in the business of flexible packaging. We've been in this in the space for the last 60 years. And as you can notice from our mission statement, we are in the business to protect. So what does that mean? We are in the business of product protection, and product integrity clearly speaks as one of the core value drivers and the pillars. So I'm jumping straight into this because this is linked to the topic of discussion today. So product integrity for us is all about ensuring that the product was packed at the time of production from the manufacturing site is delivered to the end consumer in the rightful manner, where it doesn't go any spoilage, doesn't undergo damage because of external variations in terms of handling, distribution, the vagaries that you have of cold chain in Asia, all those. So product integrity is one of our core value drivers, which clearly also works very well in terms of the other two things that I'm going to talk about, which is operational efficiency. So there's a good amount of element when you talk of packaging in terms of how do you bring in automation. And that again speaks to reduction in terms of the hygiene loads that Johannes very well speaks about. So there's always a level of microbial contamination through manpower interaction at the production site. So how do you reduce those through automation? Eventually, all of these parameters linking to extremely value-added, I would say, customer experience in terms of the brand image that our customers portray across to their end consumers. So that's what Sealed Air is about. We play in various segments across both food and non-food packaging. As you can see from the screen, fresh red meat is our largest segment across the world. Smoked and processed meats, we play in dairy, poultry, seafood, and you name it across. So there's a whole lot of experience that we've been able to leverage during these times and offer a lot of value to our customers and consumers likewise. On the protective side of the story, we do a lot of fulfillment, packaging, electronics, pharmaceutical, and transportation as well. Now, one particular aspect that I'd like to really bring to the discussion, and I'm glad that Johannes brought this up, because let's not shy away from this aspect of continuing to drive the sustainable focus, the sustainability focus on packaging. And that's where I think most of our discussions that we have internally while developing a solution, we do keep sustainability at the core of all of these packaging innovation design. And as you can see, Sealed Air has proactively signed up on a 2025 sustainability pledge, where we talk of achieving 100% recyclable or reusable product solutions with about 50% average recycled content by 2025. So clearly the focus is elimination of waste, be it food waste or be it product damage disposal, protecting the valuable goods that the packaging packs within it, and thereby enabling a very efficient supply chain, if you will. So that's the core focus of Sealed Air. Specifically, since we are talking of COVID, I would like to say that likewise at Sealed Air, we have been very, very proactive in terms of protecting our staff, which has been at the core of our focus, as well as ensuring that our customers use packaging that is of necessary requirement and ensure that end consumers are also protected in terms of ensuring that they have food which is safely delivered to them. And in these times, we have seen a major uptick, I would say, in terms of retail e-commerce demand, particularly with a lot of people dialing in food at home and wanting to consume food from the safety of their home. So Sealed Air has been at the forefront of leading all those packaging requirements, primarily moving towards creating a more digital touchless world. Some of the channels that we see clearly emerging post-COVID here is business to consumer directly gaining a whole amount of traction, particularly food service. A lot of research has been done where we're seeing that at least a third of food service has already started moving on online delivery platforms or will move to online delivery platforms. So the concept of consumers being able to enjoy restaurant quality meals at home is something that is picking up. So that's where you see meal kits emerging as a key component, as a trend in the food service business. And hence, as a virtue of that, there's a good amount of last mile delivery and e-commerce players who are playing into this particular segment. So at this stage, I'd just like to stop, and we'll take more questions during the course of the discussion. I have a few other specific slides which I'll be happy to share. Feel free to reach out to me, and thank you again. Pierre, over to you.
Thank you, Surendra. I'm going to move straight on to Andrew. Andrew, welcome. Great to have another person from Europe, well represented this evening. But Andrew, you know, you've got a long, distinguished career, and I've followed it for a number of years, as you well know. You've been a journalist for many years, so this is right up your alley. And you've spoken widely. We've shared many platforms across the world over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And your involvement in IPO, yeah, but your involvement in the Active and Intelligent Packaging Industry Association is quite profound. And with no further hold up, I want you to go straight into your PowerPoint, because I know there will be many questions that I'm going to be firing at yourself. Thanks, Andrew.
Okay, thanks very much. Let me put my screen up for you. Okay, everyone can see that, I hope. Good morning or good evening, good afternoon, hello to everyone everywhere, wherever you might be. I'm hoping that our participants are familiar with AIPIA. For those who aren't, it's been around since 2011. We have about 1,400 members. And if I get that far, we'll have a slide at the end telling you a little bit more about us. Needless to say, what we are is committed to aspects of the packaging arena, pharmaceuticals, beverages, luxury goods, electricals, you name it. So while food and beverage is a huge part of this, it's not the only part. We believe that active and intelligent packaging, or smart packaging, to give it a shorter title, can play a pivotal role in food safety and integrity and food security, and of course reducing food waste. And we talked a little bit already, or a lot, about sustainability, about we mustn't lose sight of sustainability. That's absolutely correct, and packaging should always be striving to be more sustainable, but we also have to weigh that equation against whether or not wasting the food that we spend so much energy on growing and distributing is more wasteful than the packaging. And there's a lot of arguments along that. I'm going to take you to the next 2 or 3 slides on the issues, some of the solutions, and what we're trying to achieve with those. Obviously, the issues have been added to with the COVID-19 crisis. Funnily enough, whilst obviously it's a terrible pandemic, it is creating an opportunity for packaging to show its real worth, because it is providing consumers with the clear understanding, maybe for the first time when they think about it, that packaging is not just there to make it more convenient for them to shop and carry their goods home. It's there to actually protect the goods, has a hygienic role. Single-use packaging can have a role in most things, because we do have, and I've highlighted a few of these things, but not necessarily because they're more important, but because they're very, at the moment, what we're talking about. Complex supply chains. Supply chains have shown themselves, as Johannes said, to be very robust, but they are complex, they are prone to break down, and therefore you need some kind of condition monitoring for goods along the way. I've said retailers' resistance to change. I'm not always trying to blame the retailers for this, because their margins are tiny and we demand food at the cheapest possible price. But they do have a role to play in paying for some of the technologies that will help us along the way. And it's a shared responsibility, and I'm not just picking out the retailers for that. It is a shared responsibility with the producers, the consumers, and the food packers. The other thing that we find, one of the barriers to adoption of things like our technologies, is a lack of consumer understanding, and that's something we really do have to work on, because the technologies, and if you look at the bottom line there, the technologies are quite invisible in many aspects, and people don't realize that there's something on the pack or in the pack which is helping them to extend its shelf life. Here are some of the solutions. I'm sure some of the people who are watching today are familiar with them. Additives, coatings, scavenging. I mean, some are very simple, microperforations. I mean, they're very good on fresh produce, help the products breathe properly. And then we get into the much more sophisticated areas of nanomaterials, in combination often with natural materials, to produce a shelf life extending or antimicrobial effect. But nor should we actually be ignoring some of the established technologies like MAP, modified atmosphere, and technologies that are being derived from those technologies, like the skin vacuum, because that is really extending shelf life tremendously. What we're trying to achieve is basically to make the food last longer and be in great condition for you when you see it in your supermarket, and that it lasts longer and is still the same quality, flavor, and basically can actually be kept at home longer too. People are demanding more information. Authentication and provenance is very, very important now. And people want to know what's happening inside the pack. So blockchain, it means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but blockchain is going to become more and more vitally important. And if you see something like the IBM Food Trust blockchain platform, then you'll see just how ubiquitous it's becoming. I'm going to run very quickly through a couple of these things. I'm not quite sure how much time I've got left, but here are some security systems in action. Here's one for Chinese powdered milk for baby milk. They were having terrible trouble with counterfeiting and misdirection, and we now have a system on the pack with a QR code which can trace the whole thing right from where it's produced right through to the shop where it's sold. And that's proving to be, and it's not the only one in China, because it's a big problem in China.
Andrew, you've got about a minute left.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Extending shelf life of food can be as simple as putting a coating on the inside of a lid of a fresh pack of strawberries. I've talked about vacuum skin already. Here's a very simple and elegant solution, sticking a label on a piece of fresh produce, and it actually has a property in it which makes it last longer. If anybody wants these slides, obviously they can have them at the end. But we've also got to educate people, and sometimes some of the intelligence things, the QRs and the augmented realities are areas to engage customers and give them messages about recyclability and about food safety. And there's a blockchain example. But what I want to leave you with is packaging is absolutely relevant to food safety and security, and not wrapping a shrink wrapping a cucumber is worse than wrapping a cucumber, no matter what people say. And on that note, I'll leave you and put you back to our esteemed chairman.
Thank you for that. Andrew, I want to move straight to Ralph. Ralph, I guess things are going well down under in Melbourne. Ralph, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, Pierre.
Okay. Welcome, Ralph. And I know that you play an significant role in the in packaging in general in Australia, and especially from a training educational perspective, something that you know, most of the speakers have actually mentioned so far. And your background goes way back through technical operations and most of all quality, and this is what tonight's all about.
It is, yes.
How's the quality aspect regarding foodstuffs, etc., relating to COVID-19 in your part of the world?
Well, Melbourne, unfortunately, is now the COVID capital of Australia, Pierre. We had our largest number of cases, 484 reported today. We're 2 weeks into a 6-week lockdown. And as of midnight tonight, it's compulsory to wear face masks anytime you leave your home. Schools are partially closed and others. So it really is affecting the way we live our lives. So I'm going to be a brief presentation here on track and trace and what impacts it's had on our supply chains, because our supply chains have changed. The consumers have changed the way they buy things, and in particular, what types of packaging they prefer. For example, jars, cans, the kind of traditional, if you will, have literally been cleared off the shelves, and more of the packaging that's minimal, if I can be so simple there, is left behind. So that's put tremendous pressure on our supply chains. And anywhere in Australia, it's a long journey. And we do import a significant amount of our packaging materials, which leads me into the topic tonight of track and trace. But I should also point out that one of the more recent innovations into track and trace is something like this on my phone. We track and trace people, where you go, who you meet, as part of our defense against COVID-19. So track and trace labeling is important and functional. I'm only really going to make 3 points in this very brief presentation, and I want you to think about the supply chain that you're involved with. You really want to know where your raw materials are coming from and what they are made of. That's really critical. You want to know how these materials are put together within your facility, and most of all, you want to know where they've gone to. Now, this has been a key area for many, many years. But certainly in supply chain management, and certainly under a COVID environment, this has now really come to the fore. And if you think about your particular products, your particular materials, how they fit in this particular map, and if your supply chain has been dislocated like ours has, where we're running short of metal caps, glass jars, and other key components because of the accelerated consumer demand, knowing where things are is really important. Traditionally, you've used track and trace against counterfeiting, you've used it to assist you with recalls and the like, but it also does affect the ecosystem of your production facilities. The Gs1 standards are really important. They are global standards, and if you're not utilizing them in your facilities and your packaging, it would stress upon you to do so and consider it. Not just the primary pack that the consumer will do, but your secondary packaging throughout your supply chain, but also your raw materials, your packaging raw materials, your food raw materials, your pharmaceutical raw materials. Where are they? What is their position? What is their quality status? What's happening within your supplier? With the dislocations that are occurring today, this kind of technology is critical to your business success and meeting your consumers' requirements. That happens to be just one simple barcode. I would encourage all of you, if you're only just using the traditional barcodes, that you go and look at the different varieties that GS1 now has available to it. Some have got immense capabilities for data and traceability, and will really serve your business well, because your customers, supermarkets, the end consumers, are wanting to know more about the safety of their products under today's environment. That's my concluding remark. Track and trace isn't just about a defence against counterfeiting and recalls. It is an opportunity to improve your whole supply chain, the quality and the efficiencies, but most of all, under this COVID environment, consumer trust. Thank you very much, Pierre.
Thanks, Prof. Right, now all the panelists can make sure they're back on the screen. We've had a couple of questions come in, and I'm going to start with Johannes. Johannes, there's a question regarding Teflon and the impact of Teflon on, remember you were talking about surfaces. Yeah, some light on the subject. There we go. Does that make any difference? Is it an improvement or not?
This is what I said. We don't have the scientific data for this. For sure, for me, it's likely if you have a smooth surface, yeah, then it's more likely that some microorganisms like bacteria or even viruses cannot survive or connect to that surface that easily. Yeah, but on the other hand, I answered it also in the chat. It makes no sense now covering all packaging materials with Teflon, because maybe then the surface is better cleanable, yeah. But it's more about the fact how long is really the survival rate, yeah. And there we just need scientific data. On the other hand side, there was another question. I think we have to bring this in the correct focus, yeah. The main transport of this virus is not via surfaces, yeah. It's from people to people, yeah. It's from talking to each other and coughing on each other or something like this, yeah. You know, it comes out of your mouth and connecting to another mouth. So yes, we should work on that surface thing, yeah, but do not overestimate it, yeah. It's more about personal hygiene, keeping distance, wearing mask, washing hands. Most important thing, washing hands, sanitizing your hands.
Thank you. Surendra, there's a question regarding sealed air and recycled plastics and how this affects the barrier property for certain products being packed in their light red meat. Your comment?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question. Actually, great one. Particularly if you look at trying to incorporate recycled plastic and yet be able to have high properties, that's going to be a challenge. And that's having signed up for a 2025 pledge is really towards moving a whole lot of our portfolio towards such solutions. But I think the key aspect here is that a lot of technology development needs to go behind this particular aspiration that we've set primarily. And at this stage in time, it's a challenge that we have taken up to work towards. Yes, we do recognize it's going to be an uphill task to achieve.
Okay, thank you. I remind all our listeners and viewers to feel free to ask questions. Just put it in the chat show, in the chat room, sorry, or you can also let us know, and we'll take the question directly if you prefer that. Ralph, with this COVID-19, you know, up until now, as in many parts of the world, including, I guess, Australia, there has been always a pointing a finger at the packaging, you know, and they're the bad boy on the block. What is your opinion regarding that now, where packaging is really the helper in COVID-19?
Well, I think if I might just pinch a line from Johannes, and I've been prone to do that over the years, it is maintaining that balance, Pierre. Packaging always is needed to protect products. How we do it and in the most efficient manner with the most suitable materials is, I still think, our end goal. I think in all of this debate with COVID is overwhelming the sustainability argument at the moment, but it's not going to go away. And I think the third element of this factor, which I bring to people's attention, is the food waste challenge that is in front of all of us at all parts of the planet, where packaging can play a significant part in avoiding food waste and providing nutrition to people all over the world.
Yeah, which brings me to another point, and I'm going to direct this one at you, Andrew, where, you know, the millennials, which is not your category, you don't fall into a millennial, Andrew. They reckon that they'll be more savvy after COVID-19 due to this global crisis. That's what you read in the press, because and that be more world savvy after the COVID-19, because they are listening in, hearing what's going on around the world. All of a sudden, there's life beyond their own country. Now that's all good, but how best do we cater for this smart packaging? Because up until now, millennials are not really interested in intelligent packaging.
Well, I mean, you see a lot of, particularly in Asia, you see a lot of people using their smartphones to gain access to information, and that can be about train timetables or just generally menus or stuff like that in restaurants. And the corollary of that is that they're beginning to use it more for general information about the goods that they buy. I mean, we see that really from an AIPIA perspective as an opportunity, because a lot more of the information is now available through appless contacts, if that makes sense. So you don't have to download an app to get the information. You can just scan the barcode. And I agree with Ralph that the barcodes that people like Gs1 are coming out with now are much more data driven, have a lot more information, and are easily accessible. So, you know, I come back to where I was in the middle of my presentation. It's a question of education. We certainly think millennials are an opportunity rather than a barrier. And we would certainly hope that they would want to use their phones to get more information off the packaging, as the worth of it and the reason behind it is more commonly available or commonly understood. Can I just add very quickly, I saw a question from somebody about printed electronics. On the board there. Printed electronics and NFC technology is going through a very heavy period of development at the moment. Whether it's going to be usable for all types of low cost packaging for food is another matter, because the price point, the unit cost for printed electronics is still high. But watch this space as you come into more organic printing methods, cheaper printing methods, so you can print the things directly onto the packet. So it's not going to happen overnight, but I certainly see printed electronics as becoming bigger rather than smaller in the next few years, and that COVID might drive that, because people want more information, and there's a lot of information to be had out of an NFC chip or an NFC tag printed onto a packet.
Good. Surendra, there's a question for you saying, requesting whether CLA intends to keep PVDC in use, or are there other oxygen barrier structures coming soon?
Yes, certainly. I mean, there are new structures that we are working on, and you should be hearing as part of our ongoing development programs as we will continue to work on newer technology to cater to varying needs of the markets, looking at varying regulations of governments in terms of packaging requirements and consumer needs itself. Apart from this, Pierre, I just wanted to add on to this entire concept of track and trace, and in terms of millennials taking on to mobiles, accessing a whole lot of information. I think I just we're working towards creating an entire platform, if you will, as a e-food packaging platform, which will talk of an end-to-end solution for various processes on both primary, secondary packaging, yet at the same time being able to track from the supply chain what have been the temperature profiles, what has been the time transcended, and so on. So temp trips, solutions such as temperature assurance are really looking at these kind of concepts. We used to hear of them primarily in specialized applications in the pharma and medical field, but I think food is the next one that this adoption will start happening very soon.
Thank you. Andrew, you'd like to comment?
Yeah, Surendra was talking about traceability, and I saw another question up on traceability and what's going to be the most simple or straightforward traceability system. Well, it's probably going to be some kind of coding, some kind of barcode or QR code. And just to prove that this is now happening, since the beginning of this year or the middle of 2019, all cigarette packets in the EU now have a traceability code on them, and that's 27 billion packs. And there is a platform that's being run by one of our members who is dealing with the information that's coming back to trace and all of those packaging. So it is scalable, is what I'm trying to say. It is scalable.
Andrew, I want to come back to you in a moment because I want to know about cucumbers. You never finished your sentence, but I want to jump to Johannes. And I know you got your finger up there, Johannes. So, but while you answer this question, you can do that question you were wanting to ask, and that is PAIP cups. Some countries call these are the cups you take back to the coffee bar, and you ask for a cup, you know, in your own cup. Now, there's some talk that you are bringing potential germs from home. Then would the same apply in shopping bags? What's your opinion?
Yeah, sure. This is a risk we have on all refillable systems. Yeah, wherever it goes. Yeah, it's a question of how to clean them between the use. Yeah, and how can we be sure, especially if it's a multi-fill system going to consumers. Yeah, how can we be sure that they really clean it correctly? Yeah, and this is a big issue to find out. Yeah, because it also impacts the eco-balance of such systems. Yeah, if you need a very tough cleaning regime in between, maybe this crashes your eco-balance. Yeah, so this is a severe thing, and you have to see it from system to system. Yeah, because this is very different systems on the market, how big the risk is, and how to solve it. Yeah.
Ralph, you had your finger up?
Yes, Pierre, was just back to the point about the traceability systems and the like, and the easiest to operate. Look, the 13 and 14 digit barcodes have been around forever, but they only actually identified the product. They don't provide anything more. There is a numerous dot matrix systems within Gs1's category, which can really add to the security of a manufacturing process. I'd highlight the pharmaceutical industry, which I think is well advanced in this area. So, for example, the right medication goes into the right box. It's really critical outcome. In the case of food, making sure you've got the right label that matches the allergen background of the product. And these are all in addition to all the other advantages of through the supply chain. So the scanning devices that go with these, the vision systems, are actually very cheap. That you're talking hundreds, you don't talk in tens of thousands to install them. I think the most important answer I'd give that person's question is that you really just need to think through your whole supply chain, including your manufacturing site, to ensure that the data moves smoothly from one system through another and through your entire supply chain. Doing the right mapping at the start is the most critical outcome, but there are many choices available.
Johannes and Suren, there is, or how can you allay the fears of, online we have over 450 viewers. Many of them are concerned about fresh food in supermarkets, on the one hand. On the other hand, can packaging totally help and support a fearful consumer that what they're buying is well protected? Let's start with you, Surendra, and then I'm going to ask Johannes for his comment.
Yeah, sure. I think, see, if you look at the current scenario between unpackaged and packaged, I think subconsciously there is a consumer sentiment which is clearly moving towards packaged food. That's the trend that we're looking at happening. Now, within that segment, there is rightly so concern about whether the virus itself resides on the packaging, and if so, how does one take care of their own safety, and of course the food hygiene safety involved as well. Now, as Johannes mentioned earlier in the talk, there has been no specific data to prove this particular fear. So I would continue to engage and encourage the people to follow CDC, WHO guidelines in terms of washing hands, simple things, using sanitizers. There are suggestions around washing the packaging, but I would tend to do and what I normally do is when we go out shopping every week and then bring in stuff, we kind of isolate the packaging. We pull out the material into another safe container, reusable containers, and discard the packaging. And of course, touch and post-touch, there is a good amount of washing of hands and sanitizer use and so on and so forth. So I think basic precaution needs to be taken, and these are pretty valid concerns. There has been no specific evidence to prove to the contrary. Johannes, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely same opinion. Yeah, if we talk about this, first argument must be, remember, if we talk about COVID-19, it's mainly personal contact with people. Yeah. And it's about breathing and talking to each other. Yeah, so hand washing, keeping distance, wearing masks. This is the important thing. But below there, for sure, not only for COVID-19, many other diseases, yeah, caused by microorganisms. Yeah, they can be avoided by using the right and correct packaging system. Yeah. And on the other hand, for sure, we have to be sure that packaging itself is not the transmitter of any of these germs. Yeah? So we need sanitation technologies. We have them. Yeah? We need maybe new technologies like Andrew has shown us, yeah, in the field of active intelligent packaging, yeah? Starting from modified atmosphere. There was a question on modified atmosphere and viruses. The thing is, modified atmosphere is not working on viruses, yeah? Because viruses are no living organisms. Yeah? So I cannot kill them or reduce them or block them with modified atmosphere. This is only working for bacteria and living animals and something like this. Yeah. But it's a topic we have to work on it. Surendra?
Yeah. Bear in mind that packaging really protects what you pack inside, right?
Yeah.
And the environment that you're packing in, which is typically a manufacturing location, a food manufacturing location for today's purpose of discussion. There is an element of microbial contamination which is there within a packaging facility. And there are specific standards which have been defined in terms of what is allowable and what is not allowable. So I'm sure all the big brands, national, international out there are following those norms. The food gets packaged, transported, and through the handling as it moves from the manufacturing location to the retail store and to the end consumer, it does change a lot of hands. So I think keep your hands safe to the basic stuff, and things should be fine.
Andrew, you had your hand up, but at the same time, I'd like you to answer the cucumber scenario. And as soon as you finish that, I want Ralph to think about local supply, turning back to local supply within your own country. Andrew.
Okay, I just wanted to say, do you want to say something, Marek?
Sorry, yeah, I just wanted to jump in there. I'm very conscious of the fact that we've overrun by 5 minutes already. We're trying to keep these to an hour, and I perfectly understand if some of our participants want to jump off and continue with the days. But I think we're almost, you know, at the point here where we're getting into a very useful and interesting discussion. So if the panelists are happy to continue for a few more minutes, then I think it will be useful, and we'll carry on.
You want me to answer those questions? Yeah.
Yes,
I want you
please.
to
If you're happy
answer
to.
the cucumber question.
Well, the cucumber question is fairly simple. The slide I show, it has the front page or the front of a report that proved beyond any reasonable doubt scientifically that if you shrink wrap a cucumber, it'll last 5 or 10 times longer than if you don't shrink wrap a cucumber. And I've had arguments with politicians in the UK about this and till the cows come home. You know, and it's a myth that an unwrapped cucumber lasts longer than a wrapped cucumber, and that was what I was getting at there. Can I just come back on this very quickly on all of the great work that all you guys are doing with all these wonderfully wonderful films to extend shelf life or barrier films, etc. There is also a whole host of things we call condition monitors that you can put on a pack that are getting cheaper and cheaper, or even incorporate in the plastic, which will tell you what's going on in the pack, tell you the condition of the product. So you don't have to guess, you don't have to look at a sell by date or a use by date. You can actually tell from the technology the condition of the meat or the fish or the other product inside the pack using a very simple and very cheap condition monitor.
Good. Ralph, there's been a lot of talk I hear now in your part of the world about moving back to local suppliers.
Yes, Pierre. Look, just to make the obvious, we're down under. I'm in the bottom corner of the down under part, I guess. The size of Australia alone is the size of Europe. And the sailing times out of Europe and China are in weeks, not days. With the speed that the consumers have changed their direction, and literally we had cases here, folks, where the supermarkets were filled one day and literally shelves cleared of toilet paper, pasta sauce, pasta rice, many other things, they were cleared the next day. And when you have a just-in-time system like I think nearly all of our supply chains are, when you have increases 300 and 400 and 500%, it put a massive strain on especially the items that we import. So yes, I think there's a greater discussion here, Pierre, about having certainly percentages or increased percentages of our key packaging items made locally. I sincerely hope it does develop, because it's shrunk dramatically over the last 20 years. But I think when you get to critical times like this, and this is COVID, it wasn't that long ago we had SARS, it wasn't that long ago we had different fevers and the like. They're just getting more virulent. And hopefully this will teach us a lesson here in maintaining an increased local supply base. Doesn't mean it have to be exclusive, but certainly increased local supply base of essential components of food packaging in particular.
Before we move to close, and we do need to close, I want to ask one question, and I'll leave it to any of the four of you. Are we moving, am I getting the sense that we're moving from sustainability to more product protection, shelf life and safety?
Well, if I may then, Pierre, I think all of those attributes, and I think all COVID's done is accelerate that kind of thinking. I think the aspects that many of us have discussed today, and e-commerce, all these others, they were trends that were already underway. It's just that these set of circumstances has accelerated it at a phenomenal rate, but I still think they were going to happen. So we do need to be faster on our feet and adapting. I think the knowledge, education aspects that Johannes mentioned, I can't stress them enough. No matter which society you live in, the demand for more information and more knowledge is never been more important than right now.
Well, on that note, I have to thank all of you. Dr. Bergmair out of Vienna, thank you very much. Surendra, Soni from Bangkok, thank you. Ralph Moyle from Melbourne, we wish you the best in your lockdown. And Andrew Manley from the Netherlands, thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you,
Marek,
Pierre.
any final word you need to say?
Yes, yeah, and thank you very much, Pierre, to hosting this webinar. And again, thank you to all the panel for the contributions. We've had a number of questions regarding the presentations that were shown, and we are happy to share those. If you could drop us an email to propac@informa.com, we can make sure that we can send out those presentations. The webinar has been recorded and will also be available on YouTube if anyone wants to revisit that. We've had a good number of questions come through, some of which we've not been able to answer, so we will get those sent around to the panelists, and we can get back to you on a personal basis. So yes, so once again, thank you very much to all the contributors, to all the panelists, to Pierre, to Surendra for your help in organising this as well. And all that remains for me to say is that the next webinar in this series will look at the question of sustainable packaging and global recycling targets, and how post-COVID things are looking in that section. That takes place on the 19th of August and features another panel of international contributors. So please be sure to tune in and attend on the 19th of August. So we look forward to seeing you then, and in the meantime, please stay safe, and thank you and goodbye.